Thank you. Okay, thank you for coming out in the frigid weather. This is gonna be exciting. Work the trip.
Everybody signed in.
Okay, has everyone signed in? It doesn't look like it.
I did.
So we're gonna pass that
I have
around.
two of them,
Two,
because it looked like we were gonna have a very big crowd, which we already do, so
okay,
if everyone signed in, we're good.
okay. Did you sign in for?
I
this?
signed in for her. And Tony.
Okay, okay.
And Barbara.
Okay, good. Then what else? And then did everyone pay Kathy for their lunches? And aren't the lunches good? They really are. So I'm really excited that everyone is here, and I'm going to probably call people. We need people to help with our Bob Childs Golf Outing, which is coming up May 10th. We have our outstanding community volunteer breakfast, and we need volunteers to help us with that. So if you want to be on the committee or help out the day of the event, we need you to let us know, because we need all hands on deck to make this successful. Yes, Anthony?
All the meetings except 2 are on Zoom. Okay,
For
So-
which one?
for the Bob Childs Committee.
Yeah,
I've been on it for many years, and it's really a great opportunity to serve the community. Because what we do is we raise money for the Fisher House and USO, and we also raise money for the First Sergeant's Council. So it's worth the effort to put the time in. Thank you.
and also our Citizen Legion of Honor Luncheon this year is going to be October 3rd, and as always, is at the Dayton Convention Center. So we need volunteers, we need all hands on deck. If you have someone in your organization that would like to participate also, please make an announcement in your groups, in your clubs, show them our schedule, and then let us know if there's someone that would like to participate in helping with the planning of these events. Okay, so let's introduce ourselves. Are you gonna get up and handle the camera, sir?
Maybe they all should come up there.
And introduce themselves. Okay,
I'll turn around.
okay. However you want to do it.
All right, I'll
Anthony,
introduce- All right, we'll start with,
he's our
Doc.
cameraman.
okay,
I'll introduce myself.
okay.
Yeah, we'll introduce David later.
I'm Don Adams, Mayor.
Mayor Beaver Creek, and you're here to participate with, you
Well, I'm also
participate.
President Wright Flyer and a board member of National Aviation Area Alliance.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And a member of Green Bucks, which I represent nationally.
What is your name
Member of a lot of things. Sure, yeah.
and your name?
Julia Hall.
That's Julia, yeah.
Barb?
I'm Barbara Hudson Banner, and I'm the president of 20, and also a member of the President's Club.
Four. Talk loud now.
Paul Schaefer, with Peace and Tranquility.
Peace and tranquility, very good.
Okay. Tell Cindy I said hello.
Kimberly Lewis with Fisher Nightingale Houses.
Dave Babcock with the Air and Space Forces Association. Gary Braitman, Durham Lake Optimist Club.
Yay, thank you for coming. Who's next?
Let's get John Keller.
John Keller, treasurer of the board, and a member of the board, and a CPA, and a volunteer,
And Rotary.
And Rotary.
and Rotary, Dayton Rotary.
Bernice Jackson, a member of 20 Incorporated.
I'm Dick Graff, and I'm not a president of anything. I'm the treasurer of the Aviation Trail, and I used to be a member of the President's Club, but I'm here with my wife.
I'm Vicki Graff, and I'm president of Friendship Force of Dayton.
Friendship Force.
Friendship for,
Welcome.
right.
I'm Kathy Baldwin Parks. I'm a member of Altrusa of Dayton, and currently on the board of the President's Club as a secretary.
Dr. Forward?
Derek Forward, President, Dayton Unit NACP, retired from Speedway and candidate for the 38th Constitutional Alliance.
Larry?
Larry Horwath, retired, but a member of the Riverdale Optimist Club, and been member of the President's Club for about 30 years.
Kathy?
Kathy Von Frank, also member of the Riverdale Optimist Club.
And here's Pam, she just walked in.
Pam, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Pamela Thompson, representing UT.
Okay, thank you. We have a great group with us today. Now, we're gonna go ahead and introduce Dr. David J. Wright. And I'm so excited. I took my grandkids to the Boonshock Museum over the holidays. So then that sparked my interest again, because we went to the planetarium, into the stars and the moon and everything. And so David was so gracious to say that he would come and talk to us and teach us more about the total eclipse that's going to happen in April. And so I want us all to be prepared, and I want us to go back to our organizations and get them prepared. And he's gonna tell us how, I don't know, what kind of fundraising we could do or whatever. I'm always looking.
Pray for sunshine on that day. That's what
Yes,
we can do.
he said we have to pray for sunshine. But anyway, he is a faculty member of the Uniersity of Dayton. He is the Director of Academic Technology and Curriculum Innovation, and is also an associate professor. His recent work involves helping faculty and students prepare for a future with artificial intelligence. So that's another topic we need to talk to David about. Prior work involves software development for NASA's manned space program. That's interesting. So we are anticipating the upcoming total solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024, which will be visible in parts of Ohio, including Dayton. This celestial event provides a unique opportunity to witness a rare and beautiful astronomical phenomenon. Observing the solar corona during a total solar eclipse is a breathtaking experience, and it can certainly offer a sense of our connection to the wider cosmos. So welcome, Dr. David.
Really appreciate that, and thank you, Veronica, for inviting me to be here today. I'm usually tongue-tied as a teacher to kind of just get started with a class, and I feel like I should have quizzes periodically to make sure you don't fall asleep. So if it feels like this is a class, that's typically what I would be doing, teaching students at the University of Dayton. But my role at UD, as Veronica sort of hinted, is that I have other duties, and mostly I'm in the world of administration, supporting the university in strategic initiatives like the discussions about AI right now. That's having a huge impact on the way we think about learning and teaching in the future. And I happen to be one of the few people on campus, it seems, that looks out far enough to have on my calendar something that was going to happen in April of this year. And it was marked on my calendar about 20 years ago. And I kept thinking, we've got to plan for this. And I would send to our president sort of a memo that says, here are the things you need to be aware of that's coming up in 2024. And he said, but it's 2020. You know, it's like, that's something to worry about later. So now we're kind of getting interested in the eclipse, and I think you should too. I know that you're working with community members across the board, and you have a variety of different roles. So it's possible that you will experience the eclipse in a very different way than someone else in this room. But you may well be in a position where you're also interacting with the members of the public. They may have no clue as to what's happening. And I thought this session could help you understand personally, your family, but also the greater community and how your work intersects with that. So as that little panel of text on the slide there indicates, if you hadn't already put it on your calendar, you would want to do this. If nothing else, it means stop doing anything at that hour and walk outside and enjoy the eclipse. But it could mean that you have a lot of planning to do, and knowing that we have someone here that happens to be a mayor of a city here in Ohio, I would say that they probably have a lot planned for things like traffic mitigation, stuff like that. And I wanted to cover a whole broad set of topics. So some of this is about the science of the eclipse. Some of it is about what would it look like, but also the impacts, and things like traffic is going to be a major problem for us. And I'll explain why that is based on our geography. And I should also point out that I'm Welsh, so I'm from the United Kingdom. I was so happy when my wife and I, at the time we were living in Iowa, and then we went to the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and then we found out that we could both find jobs at the University of Dayton. And so when I realized that I'm coming to Ohio, that was cool to me, because I grew up as a kid so excited about science, but also aerospace. And so, and I'll explain that maybe through some of the things that I'm going to show you here. When I was a kid, I would go to the Science Museum, or at least the part of our National Museum of Wales had a big wing of galleries filled with science stuff, and I was always excited about that. But every time I went there, and I would do so quite often on my own, I would walk through the art galleries in order to get to the science galleries. And I didn't realize it, but at the time that was programming my brain to think of science and art at the same time. So as it turns out, I don't do so now because I've been so busy, but for the last couple of years, I would paint fairly frequently. And so, for example, I painted a series of pictures that represented the history of aerospace in Ohio. And knowing the folks in this room, I understand that you were completely aware of this. But it's helpful to remember this in light of the fact that the eclipse is coming soon. So, for example, I painted the Wright brothers here, showing them as they flew over the Huffman Prairie in their Flyer 3, I think this would be. And so this is the one that's housed here, just down the road. So I'm just ecstatic about the fact that Dayton is the home of aviation, and it's great that we celebrate that. It's nice to celebrate it in light of the fact that the eclipse is coming here. I painted this, actually, it's a watercolor if you're not aware. It's pretty large, and I way down at the bottom there, you could make out the fact that it was the Wright family that was really engaged in this. I keep saying the Wright brothers, but Catherine Wright there in yellow was keenly interested and active. There's one of the brothers there with the camera, Lauren, and the father, the bishop, motivating the brothers to succeed. And that's a family enterprise. And I just think this happened here. We should be so proud of that. People who were motivated and excited about the story of the Wright brothers included John Glenn. So there's a picture. You'll see these three pictures have horizons that curve. So our horizon changed when we now look at John Glenn, because he allowed us to travel across the horizon as the first US astronaut to travel in orbit. There I'm showing him traveling actually over Ohio as he descends for his landing in the Gulf of Mexico, I think it was, in Friendship 7. And then, of course, we have Neil Armstrong, who was born in Wapakoneta, just not far from here, and then lived, I think, just not far down in the other direction, between here and Cincinnati. And so he obviously piloted or commanded the lunar module down to the surface of the moon on Apollo 11. And I think it's just so neat to remember that these events are connected, just as I made these paintings with the curved perspective. And again, Ohio is visible in the distance there. I don't know if people realize that when Neil Armstrong went down on the surface of the moon, he carried with him in the Apollo Eagle module there. He actually carried a piece of the aircraft, the original aircraft flown by the Wright brothers. And that was something instigated by Wright Air Force Base. And as far as I understand, this artifact is now on display in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington. So I just thought that there was this connection. And the moon is now going to come back and visit Walker, Connecticut. It's just amazing. So I don't know how many of you probably have a real good memory of the Apollo missions. And you remember as a child watching the TV and watching these ghostly figures bouncing around in sort of bunny suits. It just was, I mean, it really looked ethereal and otherworldly. And as a child watching that, I just was so fascinated by it, even though I didn't understand it. It seems like that interest is waning, but it's coming back. And the moon is suddenly an interesting place to visit again. So what's happening now is that we have, NASA is working very hard on a series of missions to go back to the moon. It's called Artemis, which if you remember mythology, that's the sister of Apollo, which makes all the sense in the world because the astronauts are now much more diverse. And you'll notice in the mission statement for Artemis, it talks about going back to the moon for science, discovery, advancement of technology. But it also says in that last sentence there, NASA will land the first woman and first person of color on the moon using innovative technologies to explore more of the lunar surface than ever before. So I think it's just neat to know that the faces that we're seeing in the history of aerospace here in Ohio and the rest of the nation is changing. And it's going to be very exciting. It was going to happen this year. There was going to be another manned mission, this one going around the moon with real astronauts. I think it's delayed until the next year. But we've got to be very careful because now this is incredibly competitive. So like there's other countries now in this new space race. We've got China just landed a mission, Russia, India, Israel, Japan. There are private companies doing this. And I forgot to add ESA, the European Space Agency. They're all racing back to the moon. It's very exciting to be in that race to get back there. And I'm hoping kids, public members are as excited about this. And one of the reasons why it's suddenly very interesting is that from the days of Apollo, we were trained to think that this moon is very dry and very cold, very inhospitable. But it turns out that in places on the very poles, so this is a picture looking down on the south pole of the moon. And it turns out that there are craters there that are so shaded that colder. And so water vapor has trapped itself and frozen down as ice on the base, on the bottom of the crater. So these are actually pits filled with ice, which is perfect because if you're in the business of going elsewhere in the universe, you'll have to find a gas station somewhere. And the moon is now suddenly going to be a gas station on our way to places like Mars. So it's very exciting. And lots of these countries are trying to sort of figure this out. And it's just wonderful to know that Artemis is a part of that. And I'm hoping that Ohio will, as with Apollo, be an important player in that. So when we look in April up at the moon, it has new meaning to us. It's not the moon of 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's the moon that is going to be our future. And it's kind of weird and interesting that the duration of time that's passed between when the Wright brothers flew for the first time and when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, which I think is about 60 years, is almost about the same amount of time as the first moon landing with Neil Armstrong and when the Artemis missions will be landing. And it's just amazing that that's how the timeline has been. And we've sort of gone through this period where it's been kind of quiet. So with all this love that we've shown the moon, you would think it would show that love right back to us, and it has not. It turns out that if you were looking at any particular location on the Earth, the average time it takes for a total solar eclipse to arrive is generally about 350 to 400 years. But it turns out that for Dayton, Ohio, we are in an eclipse desert because we've not had an eclipse here, a total solar eclipse, for about 1,200 years. That's incredibly long. And if you actually look like at a heat map, every place is sort of orange and yellow, and Dayton and a few other places are blue. And it's going to hopefully be fixed this April. The last time it happened elsewhere in Ohio was in 1806, but Otherwise, you have to go back for Dayton to 834 AD, which is pretty much when the sun watch villagers were kind of traipsing around, and they were interested in the sun and the moon. So it's time for us to do the same thing and celebrate. It'll take a long time for the next one to happen, I can guarantee that. When I tried using the NASA software to calculate future eclipses, it stopped giving me answers after the 1,000 years out because it gets less and less accurate after that. So I can only tell you that the next time this is going to happen in Dayton, Ohio is 1,000 plus years from now. Luckily, there is going to be one in 2099 from places like Troy North. I don't think I'll be around to enjoy it, but I thought I'd let you know just in case you had plans and start making reservations. So look at the map there. That's sort of like that's what an eclipse pathway of the totality looks like. And you can see each one of these is a different year. And it just so happens that we are in one of those pathways this April. This is what's going to happen. Down at the bottom in yellow is the sun. The little white circle in the middle there is the moon. And because both the sun and the moon are real spherical objects, they're not pinpoints, it means that when the sun casts a shadow on the earth, there's really two types of shadow. There's sort of like a faded, shady area that's known as the penumbra. And then there's a really dark spot that's called the umbra. So it's the umbra that's going to travel over us in April. The penumbra is where anyone in that area would look up at the sun and they would see a partial eclipse. So many, many people in the United States are going to have a partial eclipse, just as we experienced a partial eclipse in 2017. So if you remember in 2017, there was sort of like a hullabaloo. Some people were traveling down to places like Tennessee to watch the eclipse. A lot of the colleagues I had at UD traveled down. So I had set up a telescope up in the front of the library building, and we were listening in to our colleagues in Tennessee as they watched the eclipse down there. And I thought it was nice that they were telling us what it was like, and then suddenly the sound stopped. And I said, oh, we lost our connection. And then we realized they were crying and they couldn't talk anymore. So that's what you're going to experience. So we want that umbra. So what will we expect to see? We're going to have the sky darken. It's not going to be pitch black. It's going to look more like twilight because there's still enough sunlight coming out from the corona that will sort of illuminate the sky a little bit. And it's also true that parts of Greene County are in sunlight. So there's going to be some sunlight sort of leaking over. So the sky isn't not going to be completely black, but it's okay. That we're in good shape. You're going to see the beautiful halo here that's called the corona. That's the outer atmosphere of the sun. And it's made of plasma. It's actually hotter than the surface or the interior of the sun itself. We don't understand why that is, but I would guess it has something to do with magnetism because the sun is a giant churning pot of electromagnetic particles. So it makes sense that magnetism is going to figure into the story, but it's still a place of mystery. So scientists still like to know more about how this whole thing works. And the corona is sort of like the big, amazing thing to see when this happens in the sky, because the corona is always there, but you don't see it for the amount of light that's coming directly off the surface of the sun. Prominences are these little red lips. Those are essentially like little solar flares. They're all over the place. We may actually be right at the time of the sort of life story of the sun. It has a sort of a cyclical behavior, but we may actually see a lot of those. I don't know if you'll see them with the naked eye, but it's possible if you have a pair of binoculars, you could see them. But if you have binoculars, if you're hearing me and you say, Dr. Wright, tell us that we can go out there with binoculars, that would be the only time to use binoculars. You never ever want to use binoculars looking at the sun, obviously, because you blind yourself. If you happen to have binoculars with you, put them around your neck so that you're the person in charge of the binoculars. Don't ever give it to a kid because they wouldn't know any different and they can easily blind themselves. Bailey's beads are little pockets of bright sunlight that will show up, but there's the beginning of them right there. Just as the sun starts to reappear or actually even when it's going behind the moon, you'll see these little pockets of light. And it just means that the sun is not continuous, it's sort of discontinuous and forming those beads. And the reason is because the moon is bumpy, it has valleys, mountains, and just for that moment, you're actually seeing the silhouette of those mountains from the surface of the Earth. And then just at that very moment, it gets brighter and brighter, and suddenly you have a beautiful spot of sunlight against this sort of ring of darkness. And that's why that moment is called the diamond ring, sort of like the classic appearance of the eclipse. On the ground, you'll notice the shadows changing very subtly so that you'll see shadows becoming sharper. You didn't realize that shadows never were sharp. Now they will be. You'll notice actually even just the color of clouds in the sky will turn pink and crimson, and just incredible changes. Stars and planets will start to pop out in the middle of the day. Just for 2 minutes, just 2.5 minutes, it'll just suddenly, you'll start to see the brightest ones, and then they'll be gone again. So just for that moment, someone said that for a moment, you're looking up at the sky and you see yourself in connection to the whole universe. And it's sort of a revelation, very spiritual. Some people are very moved by this. I'm hoping it's just a great educational moment for people, but it can be very spiritual as well. You may notice the temperature drops dramatically. And being April in Ohio, that may happen at the best of times. But this is something that's very transient, and then it comes back again, so you'll notice. Animal behaviors will change. Birds will suddenly flurry around trying to figure out, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how late it was. I'll get back to the nest. My wife will be upset. So you'll suddenly see changes in behavior, nocturnal animals may come up. So lots of interesting things happening, and there's probably more. These are just some things that I found on the web and thought about myself, but it's just incredible. So this is the umbra, right? Everyone is seeing from most of this map, most people are in that bigger circle that shows the penumbra, but the little black circle is the umbra, and that's beautiful. That's where the total eclipse is going to be viewable. And so where it goes is called the path of totality. And you notice it crosses right over us. The map on the right-hand side is really interesting for us to understand because it tells us who else is going to be in the path of totality. And so it travels up through Mexico into Texas. So a lot of professional astronomers and people who are really seriously interested in astronomy are likely to go further south to Texas because it may be chances of seeing the sun is better with fewer clouds. But it travels up. It does cross over some big cities like Indianapolis. Further south, it goes over Dallas. I think Little Rock, parts of San Antonio, and then it comes across the Midwest. So Indianapolis, like I said, and it's interesting, if you look carefully, you'll notice that it just only clips Cincinnati, only clips Columbus. What that means is those folks there, if you were to travel to the north of those cities, you may just see totality for 10 seconds. But that isn't going to satisfy those people. They'll want to go somewhere else to see it. Guess where they're going to go?
Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio. Yeah. Or they could travel further north if they wanted to go to Toledo, Cleveland, Akron, Wapakoneta. So this is why Neil Armstrong's story is so important, because the center line, the place where you get the longest, most darkest skies for the eclipse, Wapakoneta is in the perfect spot. So I just don't know how you get a few 100,000 people at that Wapakoneta Armstrong Museum. But that's crazy, and it's going to happen. We've got the chances that a lot of people will come from Columbus and Cincinnati. But if we're talking about people traveling, you may as well say Pittsburgh. I mean, there's the whole East Coast over here, and they're only seeing a partial eclipse, and it's within a day's drive. So I don't think people realize that on the weekend of the April 8th, so that's the 6th and the 7th, you're going to have a lot of people coming in from the east. I think everyone on the west would probably come down and funnel into Indianapolis and the other places along that line. But we may just get totally inundated. And that's one reason why the folks really coordinating the efforts for the state of Ohio, or actually the folks involved in emergency planning. Thankfully, they said, don't take science teachers into the planning process. This is state emergency planning, which I think is really a good move. Because from many perspectives, this may actually look more like a hurricane evacuation in terms of the scale of the people moving. Again, assuming the weather is okay. That's the bigger picture. So you can kind of see it goes across. And by the time it gets to us, it's traveling at 2,000 miles an hour. So it is very fast, but we get 2.5 minutes. You notice because the eclipse, the umbra is round, flattened oval, an ellipse we say, it means that we don't get the full width, but we get a decent amount. It's pretty good. Better probably than most people saw in 2017. So that's why people are saying this may be the better eclipse out of the one from 2017 and the one in 2024. This may be the eclipse to watch in the pennant. For the weather, it's Ohio, it's April. What could possibly go wrong? I have a feeling that it would be black clouds and rain and snow on the ground and ice. That's Ohio. But technically, mathematically, it says we should have a 50-50 chance of a clear sky, or at least some sunshine. Where are we? There we go. That's not bad. It's better in places like Texas, but not dramatically so. So I keep telling my friends, don't rush to go to Texas. Ohio may still work out for us. But notice it does get worse the further north you get. So that's one reason why if you're in, I don't know, New York, you say, I want to go see the eclipse. They'll see this. And they're going to say, I don't want to go north. I'll go west. And we are west. Things to know about safety. This is word for word what I found on the NASA Eclipse website, because you, and then if you talk to other people, you need to say this right. That in order to view the eclipse, you have to be wearing special eclipse glasses or a little handheld solar viewer. Got a picture of one in just a moment. So you, your family, or if you have an organization that does this, you have to buy these things. No one's going to hand them out to you. You have to go out of your way to find them and buy them. Or you may be the person handing them to other people in the public arena. But you have to wear these for viewing the sun, because otherwise you will burn your retina and it never comes back. The damaged retinas do not grow back. So what you do is you use them when the partial eclipse is taking place, because that's where the sun is the brightest. And you do it after the total solar eclipse. But when the umbra is right over us, then you can take the glasses away and look at the corona. And I swear, if you go on YouTube, you can watch video after video of people who have been given these glasses. They're out in a state park somewhere with a school bus dropped off a whole bunch of people and said, here are the glasses. And they're just standing there and it's like, oh, look at that, the sun's gone away. Sun's gone. And they're waiting for it to come back. I'm like, that's when you take the glasses away. Because that's the moment you see the umbra, and you've never seen anything quite like that before. And it's beautiful. So it's very brief, but spectacular. And then the moment the sunlight starts to reappear, then you put your glasses back on for the rest of the partial. And most people actually disappear after only a few minutes afterwards, because they realize they've seen it before, and it'll be the same thing afterwards. So, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So again, more information, a different website, but I like what this website has. It says you have to buy these special built solar filters. They have pointed out here that ordinary sunglasses are not good enough. So you may just be thinking to yourself, I don't need glasses. I've got my sunglasses. I'm good. They're not good enough. They have to filter out all this incredible bright light. And the other thing to be aware of is these, and I'm talking about solar eclipse glasses that are really just like a paper, piece of paper with sort of black film in them. So they're very dark, and you think This is pointless. But if you went out into the sun and checked it out beforehand, you'll notice it does allow you to see the sun, but nothing else. You can't see the horizon or anything else. A viewer is just the same type of membrane in a bigger sheet of paper. So that's something you could hold up in your hand. You don't have to put on your head. Almost everyone I've ever seen holds the glasses on their head in the same way they have the viewer held up to their face. So either way is fine. Very, very important. If you're searching online for these things, do not buy them randomly. Just if you went to Amazon and just said, hey, I can see this, I'll buy it, and I'm good to go. You have to make sure that it complies with the standard, which goes by this gobbledygook name. But it just means it is thick enough and dark enough to block the sunlight and don't burn your retina. So that's good to know. Also, don't think that you're buying something on the cheap if it says 2017, because they had some left over from 2017. They may be bad. If they're old, they will go bad. And so don't ever buy something that says anything other than 2024. Why I sound like a teacher saying those things, but I apologize. I just want to make sure you do it. Anyway, here's the other pieces of information you want to know about the impact. You have to expect congestion on our roads, both a few days beforehand, but especially the moment the eclipse is over. People immediately get on the road and they all think they're going to be faster than everyone else, and the interstates are completely clogged. The pictures that we've seen of this sort of incident, it's going to look different now because everyone has GPS in their cars. Our cell phones have maps that tell us that the roads are blocked. So all of the folks that are going to get on 675, 75, 70, thinking that they're going to stay on those interstates, are actually going to peel off the moment they hit congestion. So that means all of our secondary roads, primary roads, everything is going to get blocked. And so, like I'm telling folks at UD, you know, we may be stuck on the campus for faculty and staff for hours and hours. So bring your dinner. You know, think about family and stuff like that. We're going to have a lot of people influxing from places like Columbus and Cincinnati. Plane flights are going to be full. Airports are going to be crazy. Hotels are going to be full. Restaurants are going to be full. Gas stations are going to probably run dry of gas. It's going to be an event of some rather biblical kinds of proportions here. Cell phones may stop working because there's just going to be too many people pinging the cell phone towers. We're all used to being able to just connect to the internet. That may not be true on that day. Not because the sun is doing anything magical, just simply we have too many people living in the county for that moment of time. And there may be many other implications I just don't know about, but as a technology person, I keep reminding people that when you go into a place like a restaurant and you buy something, your cash register is now connected to the internet for validating credit cards. So that's going to go down. So I don't know how people are going to be buying things. There are towns in the path of eclipses in the past that ran out of water because everyone rushed to the toilet and pulled a flush right after the eclipse, and the water pressure collapsed. So weird things can happen, and you are leaders in our community, and you just kind of need to be aware that weird and funky things can happen, and beautiful things can happen, but you have to remember the funky things as well. Magic of eclipses is that you don't have to do this on your own in the backyard. You could be with other people. This, I think, is college in Colorado, Fort Collins, I think. And you can kind of see here how many people are gathered outside to watch this together. I mean, it's a beautiful event. You could imagine situations where they're in an arena. That could happen too. So I'm helping the University of Dayton plan to take this space, which we call the Central Mall, and convert that into the place where our students, faculty, staff can observe, and presumably family members, because we think that what's likely to also confuse the whole situation is that many schools will close that day. Or the schools will keep the kids inside so they don't see the eclipse, which I don't understand, I wouldn't agree with, because of safety concerns. They don't want the kids to hurt their retinas. So parents are likely to take the kids home out of school or keep them at home out of school. And we're going to suggest that they come to the campus as well. So we may end up with about 10,000 people on this plaza right outside the place where I teach my class, which is in that doorway right there. So that's what I mean by eclipse watching in community. I think it's going to be a tremendous opportunity. And remember this as well, if it is cloudy, it's still going to happen. We just may not see it fully with the corona. But it's going to get very dark, and it'll actually get a lot darker if there are clouds. So that alone is going to be a phenomenon that people, when they see it, will realize this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing to experience. So it could be a bad weather day, but I'm hoping for a good weather day. It was April 8th last year, and I'm praying that it will be the same thing this time. So this is a nice picture I found on the NASA website that shows people who are happy. So I want you to remember that about the eclipse. That's what this is all about. But those are the dates again. So if you haven't already added it to your calendar, do so now. And I thank you. And you didn't run to the door, which is usually what my students do. I see them running. And they did, and you did. So you're really good students. I really appreciate that. I'm open for any questions, thoughts, and anything you may add. Like if you've seen the eclipse yourself elsewhere, tell me what you've experienced. Yes.
If you have like a digital camera
Yeah.
where you can see, how would that affect your eyes if you're using a digital camera to take photos?
It's going to struggle to try to figure out the right balance. So you may want to not take a picture. In 2.5 minutes, and the time it takes you to kind of figure out, okay, I've got to change the contrast setting, and that's in settings. And by the time you've done that, it's happened. What the camera can do that is of great value is to take pictures of you and family as you see it, like those people. If you can set up a camera to do that, like you have a tripod, for example,
Right.
Take a picture of the family watching. That's priceless. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures of the eclipse, and they all look pretty much the same. Yours will not look as good. You don't have the fancy equipment. So if there's a memory you want to make, it's with the people and that's what I meant by eclipse in community. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes.
But cameras are pretty smart, so they may just do a good job nowadays, but I'm tempted to think I'm going to enjoy this with my 10,000 friends because I'm going to be the MC for that thing. So I may not have time to take a picture. Yes.
I
Thank you.
remember growing up, and it was probably around 1960, plus or minus. I mean, I remember being a child, and we had an eclipse. I think I always assumed it was a total eclipse, but apparently not, from your data before. But yeah,
Here in Ohio,
yes, in Dayton.
probably was a partial eclipse.
But I think it was a pretty good partial.
Yes,
mean,
if it gets-
almost-
If it gets down to 90%, it looks pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
And my dad had this package of old slide films, poked a hole and you had this other little shoebox thing that it would reflect through there and you could watch it on a piece of paper or something or other.
Yeah.
But it is a little creepy what I remember is when it gets dark. I mean, you start to feel like the apocalypse is coming. Or, because it's not your normal darkness, particularly because it's not at that time of the day. And it just, yeah. I don't remember birds going crazy, but it was just kind of a
Your
weird,
pineal gland says this is wrong,
yeah.
something's happening.
Mhm.
So all of those things are taking place and it's soak it all in.
Well, and the other thing, I mean, it's just, think how many people are looking at the same thing at the same time. I mean, millions, depending, even if they're not being able to see the total as we are in the path here, but how many people are going to be looking up at the sky for those whatever minutes and stuff? It just,
You're talking about fundraising. Have circles for $20. Stand in the circle. And invite all these people in from Columbus and Cincinnati. That's your fundraising activity.
there you go.
So my question is, I've been talking to people. I'm part of the aviation trail here in town. And the people in Waco and Troy are planning on thousands showing up at their little airport runway to view it. Will we see it significantly better there than we would here?
Yes.
Or in Greenville? It would be better in Greenville.
It would certainly be better, the closer you are to that midline, the longer it will be. So it'll get closer to like 4 minutes. And the darker it will be. So the contrast is that much better. You'll see more stars, for example. Maybe if there are animal changes, you're more likely to see it during 4 minutes than you would at 2.5 minutes. But we're in a pretty decent shape. So I don't think if I were in Dayton, I don't feel like I'm compelled to travel north or even west to Indianapolis. That's going to be a big, because you can have people from Chicago coming down. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was worthwhile going up there, but probably not.
But it would be lovely to know the activities and stuff. And so I would guess that NASA is probably partnering with the museum.
The Waco Museum up there has a whole bunch of things they're planning on doing.
Oh, well, yeah. So this, there
Little
are
airport.
places that have been planning this for about 7 years. I feel kind of like I'm rushing around telling people, this is 82 days out. So we're running out of time. But I think it's just going to be tremendous. I can feel it.
What about the eyes of animals, pets and so forth?
That's a great point. I don't know if they're gonna, I mean, I've got a lot of dogs and I don't think they pay any attention to what I do at any time. So the fact that I'd say to dogs, don't look at the sun, that's gonna hurt your eye. It's like, oh, there he is rabbiting on again. Something other than food. So I'm not as worried about them. And in fact, if it turns out darker, they're probably just thinking it's a really bad cloud that's passing overhead. Me and dogs, it's not involving food. I don't seem to have a very strong working relationship with them.
She was talking about, well, you took a piece of paper and you just put a pinhole in it. Does that still work?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So if you find yourself without the glasses are really just ideal because you don't have to make something. But with the kids especially, it's fun to take a shoebox, open it up so you can kind of just see into the box and then have a hole in one end. And then you point that to the sun and you can do it earlier so you can make sure it works. And then you get the cast image of the sun and it's pretty decent. And you can see that on the other end of the box. You have a little sheet of white paper to make it a bit more contrasty so they can see it. I would suspect that because of the solar cycle, we may see sunspots more than we did in 2017, which means it's more interesting. So people will see features on the sun. It's not a bland disk. It actually will have features on it. And now you can explain what sunspots are. Kids are going to go, wow, I didn't know.
So what you're saying is you're gonna buy glasses for that.
5 and 6 months ago.
Yeah.
You're going to have a hard time getting them close to your And where if you are buying a lot to hand out to community members, treat them like money. Because once you have them, people could steal them because they know that they can sell them. So put them in a safe place, in a cool place, not in like a window of a car or something like that, and ruin them. Put them in a nice, cool place, locked, so that you can distribute them to the people you want to distribute. Right. Yeah.
I just was gonna say to me, it's very convenient on the time of day because the sun will be up in the sky.
Very happy.
So you're not gonna have it blocked with trees or depending on where you live.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to see it. It'll be up high enough that your big maple's not gonna block it or that kind of thing. That's neat.
And the downside is that everyone will be leaving at rush hour. That's another thing to remember in terms of impact. So that's one reason why I think we're going to say to our faculty and staff, stay on campus. Don't try to rush home because you're never going to make it. Yeah.
are you guys gonna be providing them for your students and staff?
Yeah, I think we just placed the order for about 15,000.
Oh, okay. And then
That's
do you
another
know if,
reason why they're harder to obtain now, because we're
Buy them in
we're
bulk.
scouring them off the market.
right, do you know if Boom Shop would have them?
I couldn't say, I would suspect the big public places would have them, but don't assume anything. I get them yourself. I mean, they're about $3 or $4 each. About $3 or $4 each. You can get it with tax, 10 of them, 50 of them, or in our case, several thousand.
Veronica.
Oh, that's neat.
He might have another one that was supposed to get it out.
And so for many of these agencies or organizations, that they will brand the glasses so that it's actually a marketing pitch. Handing them out is as much a way for them to draw up interest in their own products and services, which is okay. We may be doing the same for ours. I lost track of whether or not we were.
How would I know, that they're old glasses? I just ordered some, and they would be right, they weren't very expensive. I know in 2017 they ran out. That's why I ordered them already.
Look carefully as you open the package and look to see if it says for the 2017, but they generally will say what eclipse they're for, because we all know the age. It's plastic, and plastic does deteriorate. And if it deteriorates, meaning it's got little micro cracks, a little micro crack is just as easy to imagine as a pinhole, and light will come through and you got a hole in your retina.
That is criminal.
So when you mentioned earlier that, that, you know, after that, just ask one question, because I thought we had total Solar Eclipse in 2017, right?
No, not here.
So it just didn't happen in Dayton, Ohio.
Correct. So we
So
were
when
in
you said
that,
1,000 plus years from now, you're talking specifically that it will happen in Dayton, Ohio for 1,000 years.
yes.
Not that it won't happen.
Yeah, so the frequency of partial eclipses is almost like once every year. I mean, it's pretty frequent because the penumbra is huge. The umbra is small, so it's only the little patch of land, it's about 100 miles across. So it's just mathematically not likely that we're going to see it. But the software allows me to see exactly which days, and we know that there's going to be one in 2099. And it crosses right over Troy and misses us. The next one won't be at least 1,000 years more. So the drought will continue. And so if we can take advantage of 2024, because this is it.
For Dayton, Ohio.
For Dayton, yes.
Does a solar eclipse happen every year, but just not seen by every location? Or is it every 3 years where they just line up in perfect?
Yeah, there's sort of like a resonance, mathematical resonance that takes place because the Earth and the Sun and the Moon are not in the same plane, we're tilted. So it just happens to be that things intersect them at certain times of the calendar. So it actually is every 18 months that it's going to be a total solar eclipse.
Okay.
But it's more often than not, if you think about it, mathematically, it's going to happen over the ocean. So
Yeah.
obviously it happens everywhere else except here.